So here's something that I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, because one of the things that I've been sort of talking about is we seem to have defaulted to the national number for when we're looking like we're ready to reopen or we're ready to go in. And I've mentioned the number 1,000 new cases per day per million of population seems to be the plateau, which would be deemed quote unquote safe, or certainly a better plateau to go into society and kind of start being a bit more comfortable around where we are. I was gonna, we've been a while, so I won't do it, but I was gonna play the first 10 seconds of this interview where Maddie goes, it's 19th of April. It's like, oh, like, it looks like COVID's coming to an end. And it's like, it hasn't aged well. But I was doing that as a bit of a joke. So I won't do that. But this is epidemiologist, I think from Auckland University. I'm not sure if this is a colleague of yours, but Dr. Dion O'Neill, who was on Breakfast a month ago, talking about, now this is my paraphrase, but talking about kind of where we need to get to in community for us to kind of feel like we can get back into life a bit more easily, right? So I'm just going to play it so then everybody knows what he says, where I got it from, and then I want to go on to talk about what that actually means, not over the whole country, but per DHB. So let's have a listen to this first.
Right, so a lot of that's going to depend on people's behaviour. So at the moment in Auckland, in terms of what our daily cases are, we look about as safe as we're going to get.
So it's a month ago.
This is mostly looking at what's happened in similar places to Aotearoa overseas. We expect cases after that first wave to plateau at about 1,000 cases per day per million of population. So Auckland's down in that plateau now, between 1,000 and 1,500. And once the rest of the country joins Auckland on that plateau, you'll expect maybe 5,000 cases a day. And we sit there until something changes. And so that could be people changing their behavior and deciding, hey, I'm really...
So not to cut him short on his thoughts, but then he explains a bit more in detail. But I wanted to show people, now, is it fair for me to make that assumption, Anna? Kind of talking about getting to 1,000 per day seems to be that area that we'll get to and be able to function and then look out for increases. Because that's what I've sort of been saying, it's not a target from the government, but it's a projection by modelers as to where we want to be. Is that a fair synopsis of what he said?
Yeah, but as you pointed out, it was the 19th of April as well. So, we now have a change that we've got new variants in the country. Yeah. And so it's the goalposts are going to keep shifting, and one of those plateau reasons is people letting their own guards down as well. Like when we were peaking, you don't get infections if you don't have humans, right? So if you don't have a vector out there spreading it around, then it doesn't spread around. So that was happening, and then then people hear that the peak's coming down, so you might feel a bit more relaxed, and more vulnerable people might go out, or people who have had the virus and they go out too. So yeah, I think it's a fair assumption that, this is what the modelers do, right? They model off behaviours and expectations. So, that's where we were headed. That might now change.
Yeah. And this is kind of what I want to get into about who has the information, because I don't want to necessarily say that this has become political, but I'm using Southern DHB because it's where I live. I have also brought up the Waitemata numbers as well, because that's where Jeremy lives. But my complaint over the whole time is, if there are 345,000 in the Southern DHB, as this document says that we're looking at right now, that means this target, this best ideal, the area for us in the southern to get to would be about 345 new cases a day. And now I'm thinking about, okay, and that means like maybe we could remove the mask mandates, etc. So what I've done is I've gone back and got all of the numbers from the week before we went into orange, right up until today, that are available for the Southern DHB. And I just wanted to show people what they were. So that red line going across the bottom, that's about 345. So the arrow up here, that's when we went into orange. So when we go, we don't know who to listen to, we don't know who controls whatever the situation is. In Southern DHB, since we went into orange, which is here, there's been one day, which is this one, where the cases have been fewer than twice that amount that we've been told is what we should be aiming to. Most days it's been between 2.5 and 3. Some days it's been greater than 3. So now I go as a parent and a concerned person for people's health. Who do we follow? Who do the principals follow? Because we were talking about masks at the start. I'm looking at the numbers and I'm going, if the whole country was at 15,000 cases a day, which would be 3 times that 5,000, then the whole country would probably be in red. The Southern DHB has been, for a lot of this past time since we went into orange, at more than 3 times that number of cases per day, yet we've been floating around in orange, worrying about people being upset about having to wear masks, allowing 12 and 15-year-olds to make the decisions for themselves as to what's best for a public health situation. And this is what I wanted. I've talked about this a lot, but this is what I wanted to demonstrate to people. Now, this is my DHB. There are some, like whatever the DHB that looks after Hawke's Bay, they seem to be below that 1,000 per. Jeremy, just so you know, Waitemata DHB where you are, 630,000 people. So you would hope 630 cases a day working on that 1,000 per million. Yesterday, you guys had 1,305. So it seems to me that the numbers aren't showing us being safe, whatever safe means, or okay at orange. Now, I guess I've put out there in detail now what my whinge has been for the past month, and I'm happy to go, okay, finally I've explained it. Dr. Anna Brooks, you can jump in on this. You're an expert. Jeremy, you've got things to say. Go for it. Because I feel like I'm done. I'm like, principals, if you say this and stay where you are, there's nothing more I can do to, for my opinion, demonstrate why I think that these removing mask mandates and even being at orange and southern is a good idea.
I just want to mention one thing before. Sorry, if you don't mind, Anna. Again, I'm just doing my thing of throwing my uneducated guess out there and then handing over for you to tell me I'm completely wrong. Feel free. But, one of the things that has been said for a long time is that, we can rightfully expect another wave, as you mentioned this, Anna, as people come out of their choice to isolate in many ways. I mean, I certainly have been isolating as much as possible, plus new variants, plus now we've got the borders opening, and we're getting rid of pre-departure testing for people coming into the country. There's all these variables, but one of the ones for me is that this idea of people choosing to get back into the world. It's not necessarily a choice that you have 100% control of. I would still work from home every day if I could. But it's becoming more and more common for me that I can't do that. I mean, I'm a freelancer. I'm an entertainer. Live audiences are obviously part of what I do. But the other thing that's changing is people are now asking me to do face-to-face meetings, where even a month ago, it would be absolutely, you would assume that if you were meeting with someone, it was going to be on Zoom or a phone call or whatever. Now I had to go into an office for the first time the other day, for the first time in 2.5 years. I had to go have a sit down meeting in somebody else's office. Now that wasn't my choice, but my choice in that situation was I either break my own personal self-isolation or I don't get paid this week, and that ties into this hospitality industry that we're starting to hear, this idea, well, we need our workers to be able to come to work even if someone in their household has tested positive. Well, that's a big choice to ask somebody to make. Economic security over even a small potential that they're going to pass on the virus to somebody.
Exactly. And all of what you've just said is exactly, where we're at, as in all of those issues. I was the same. So, I'm working from home today, and one of the reasons that the group of us got together to do that letter was that we were about to go into orange, and schools were going back after the holidays, and we work in education facility. I work at the university, I teach there, and we all went, hang on, what? So we collectively, Auckland University at the time, we actually got together, a group of lecturers, and went, hang on, are we okay with this? And so it was great because the university was proactive, and they said, no, you know what? They changed their language quite quickly. They sort of said masking is no longer required, but, pop it on to walk around, and you're like, what? And so the language kept changing. And luckily for us, we were like, this is a business. We as lecturers want to be back in person. We want the education process to be back to normal as much as possible. But if you slap us and the age group that had already swept through, largely, like as in, it was sweeping through the university age group pretty quickly. And like right now, because I think this is second week back, they're all on round 2. Okay. Yeah. Getting their reinfections. So what we pushed for, and thankfully universities took this on board, is that we mandated or at least strong requirement for masking. We don't necessarily want this whole society of policing. We don't want there have to be someone saying, where's your mask? But if the majority of people are doing the right thing with these even requirements, we don't need necessarily to use the terms mandates, like requirements. Please respect people around you. So we were thankful that all that language changed. In the same vein, in the same week, like as in the first week back, there were graduation ceremonies, and we're like, like graduation is a giant room of people of all age groups, vulnerabilities, and there was no mask mandating at those. So, all of these things are a giant mess in the sense that, red orange kind of doesn't mean anything in the context of the virus, right? Like that's kind of what this boils down to, is and there's no difference of how much sort of virus is around, apart from that we had a giant amount at the beginning of red, and then it's just now's good, let's go orange.
Can I add a couple of things here? One is from someone who's watching us right now. Empress says, I let my guard down. Second case in 6 weeks. First one was from my daughter bringing it home from school, and now she is showing symptoms as well. So just to get that out there.
All too common story, unfortunately.
It is actually, and so it's not an outlier. People need to understand that that's not an outlier. Just before you jump in, to echo what you were saying, Anna, about the mixed messages again from the article, going full circle back to our newsroom. This is from the ministry. Messages on health impacts of COVID-19 have been unclear. A March 18 bulletin noted tamariki and rangatahi who catch COVID-19 will usually have no symptoms or only mild respiratory symptoms similar to a cold. 2 weeks later, the ministry advised that although milder than Delta, Omicron is not a mild illness. 2 weeks after that, the ministry had returned to saying, for most people, COVID-19 will be a mild to moderate illness. So just to echo your thoughts about the mixed messages.
Yeah, so what sort of happened around this time, or what the sort of bulletin's referring to here, is that we as experts were like, that's not right. We were started to hear misinformation come, from the ministry, essentially. Like things that we heard that your immunity lasts 3 months. We heard all of these things coming out, and we were all cringing. So the things that were lacking in the messaging were that you can be reinfected. Anyone can get symptoms, regardless of your vaccination status. And some people are going to get their butt kicked. You're going to be really, really sick. It's not to say that some people are not going to be affected at all, because we absolutely know that. And thank goodness, right? We've had over 1 million cases. If everyone got really sick, we'd be in big trouble. So it was just that the most up-to-date information was not coming through. We never heard reinfections. I don't even think it's still being talked about.
I just wanted to say that the reinfection message has just not gone through at all. I mean, I know people who are on their second infection, and it's just not there, and not just in New Zealand. I know the US just hit 1 million deaths. Joe Biden's just announced that the flag's going to fly at half-mast in the US, but it's still the absolute prevailing wisdom around the world is once you've had it, you've had it. That it's like chickenpox or something, that you're done.
It's crazy.